Welcome to Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management by Dynasty Financial Partners and hosted by CEO Shirl Penney.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management. I'm thrilled for our episode this week because I'm joined by a very dear friend, Christina Townsend, who is the Managing Director and Head of Relationship Management and Consulting and Platform Strategy at BNY Mellon, Pershing. Christina, thanks so much for being here with me.
Thanks for having me.
Well, before we get going, I also wanted to say thank you to you and all of your partners and colleagues at BNY Mellon Pershing for sponsoring this edition of Around the Track, as well as helping to sponsor various events and our gatherings with our community and our advisors throughout the year. So thank you very much for that.
Of course.
All right, so we're going to go through the ground rules. Not that two former Bates graduates, are going to know how to follow the ground rules together. But for anyone who doesn't know, Christina and I did go to Bates together. Obviously, she is much younger, but we were there at the same time. We have 15 minutes to make our way around this virtual track together. There's 8 questions. Each of those questions represents one of the furlongs on the track, 8 furlongs in a mile. So with that, we're going to jump right in.
And they're off.
First question: in the off chance, Christina, that anyone is watching this and they don't know who you are, could you tell us a little bit about Christina Townsend, both personally and professionally?
Of course. Well, thank you for having me. It's so exciting to be here with you, back together at last. As you mentioned, I've been here at BNY Mellon Pershing for 20 years. First job, right out of Bates. Super lucky to have found the perfect place for me to kind of develop my career. Really focused on the RA custody business, leading the team you mentioned, relationship management, business and technology consulting, really working with RAs each and every day to bring them solutions to help them grow their business. And I still can't believe how many people in our circles here actually have graduated Bates, including my husband, who also is an alumni. But on the personal side, I live outside of Philly and have two little girls, just like you, and a puppy that, of course, I had to get during COVID.
That's awesome. Thanks for that. And look, we have at Dynasty, we've enjoyed a relationship with Pershing and BNY Mellon now really since we started the firm. I remember some of those early conversations, and your business has evolved a lot over that time. Our business has evolved as has the partnership. But as you sit, in your role today and look at, the business where you are now and going forward, what has you most excited about some of the things that you and your peers are working on?
I think it's just the evolution of this business. I mean, when we think about where we've come from, right, to have an entire decade of the RA industry just growing and transforming and looking and watching the entrepreneurship has been incredible. And so now I'm kind of like, what's the next chapter? What's the next 5 to 10 years? And really what's most exciting for me is how can we help these advisory firms, whether it be technology or other capabilities, to help them be able to scale and grow to serve the ever-changing needs of the client. So it gets me out of bed every day.
That's awesome. So if you let's take a half step back here and let's look at, a couple of questions at the macro level about our industry. The first one I have is, if you look out over the next 5 years, let's say within our industry, what are some of the things that you're most excited about, most optimistic about?
I think, watching advisors' role transform and thinking about this in my own life with my financial advisor, my mom, her financial advisor, looking at them really embracing the value that they bring beyond investment management, beyond planning, but truly becoming that life coach or quarterback. I think is just going to be amazing to see how that evolves. And I think that to be able to use technology, right, is going to be critical. And to figure out how they're going to offer that type of kind of breadth of solutions. What are they going to do in-house? What are they going to outsource to firms like ours? And a bit further down the line, how is it going to really be democratized? How are we going to be able to bring this kind of full life coach quarterback to all clients of all different wealth tiers? And I had an advisor the other day who said their client called and said, should my kid transfer colleges? Like, that's the question they're getting, not how is my portfolio doing? So the role that our two firms, as an example, can play over the next 5 years, I think is going to be amazing.
Yeah, look, I agree. If we've learned a lot, as a people, and certainly as an industry over the last year or so. And one of the things that we've learned is the importance of the role of a financial advisor. And I like to say, over the last year, it's really been the advisor Super Bowl, right? I mean, everyone really wanted to talk to an advisor, and I think the importance of that role. Our world is getting ever more complicated. I think will just continue to be important, and for businesses like ours that support that profession, I think it's going to be a bull market for what we all do for quite some time. Let me reverse the question on you though, and say, over the next 5 years or so, what are you most concerned about?
Let's see, what am I concerned about? What keeps me up at night? Well, I'll tell you, I finally quit the Diet Coke habit, so I'm sleeping a lot better. And in one hand, Shirl, I think about, what are we not even seeing? What are we not even talking about or thinking about? And that's scary. So we spend a lot of time, really pushing ourselves on this question: what should we be looking out for? And I think it's going to come in the form of some technology, an entrant into the industry, a disruptor in our space. And we've been talking for a long time about this technology topic and how financial services on average is lagging other industries in terms of what consumers expect. And although we are making progress, I don't know that it's fast enough. And I'm not saying that technology needs to take over what we do. That's not at all. It's always going to be advisor-led, human. It's all about the actual people. But the technology that enables that experience, I don't know how much more time we have talking about what is good enough. I think we really need to transform the technology that helps advisors deliver that amazing experience.
It certainly feels like we're headed towards a world that's more of a cyborging, taking the best of technology, the human element of what advisors do. So I agree with that. So look, you sit in a very unique position with your senior role at BNY Mellon Pershing, and you get the pleasure of working with so many of the best independent advisors and RIAs in the country. What would you say the firms that are the best run, the ones that are growing the fastest, the most profitable, et cetera, what are they doing just a little bit better than their peers?
Well, I wish I had the big reveal here, what's the big secret? But I really think it's firms who go back to the basics and have a disciplined approach around what is their brand, what's their value proposition, what's their growth strategy. It's amazing how many firms, that takes a back seat to the day to day. And the firms that really have that process and that discipline do outperform those who don't. And I was actually talking to Gordy on your team the other day from a marketing perspective about marketing plans. And what he says is so right, which is you have to understand what your business strategy is. An advisor who wants to have 5 high net worth new clients come through the door or 100 more mass affluent clients, it's going to be a totally different plan. So I think it's going back to the basics. At the same time, trying new things, right? Taking risks, embracing change. Think about that next dollar. Are you going to invest in another, operations associate, which you may feel you need? Or are you going to take kind of a different path and say, maybe I need to hire a new role that I've never even had, let's say a project manager, right? So take some of those chances, place some bets. But I would say it's the firms who really go back to the basics.
That's awesome. I appreciate that perspective. So let's talk a little bit about leadership. And there's a lot of people that are watching this conversation that have a title with some type of C in front of it, right? Whether it's Chief Financial Officer, COO, CEO, et cetera. Some of those people have been in those roles for quite some time. Some are new to those roles. So just reflecting on yourself as a leader, what's your leadership style? What's your approach? And maybe what's one great piece of advice that a mentor has given to you over the years?
Well, it starts and ends with the people and the team. It really is. I think that the leaders who have the ability to interact with people naturally, listen to them, ability to really learn and know that you don't know everything, and having those relationships where you can be empathetic and really to put yourself in other people's shoes. I think that's at the core, right? Everything beyond that, in terms of being a good communicator and providing transparency, is kind of icing on the cake. It really comes back to those people skills. And I think when you talk about kind of lessons learned from a very early point, I'm sure you were told the same thing. Leadership is not the same thing as management. And so even if you're not in a management role within your firm and you're not managing people, you can still be a great leader and have great impact. And so you kind of need to separate those things. And in fact, of course, we probably have people who are managers and managing a team who aren't great leaders and having impact. So I would separate those two kind of concepts and really focus on leading from wherever you happen to be right now.
Okay, thank you. So Christina, you're on the advisory board of Dynasty Women's Network. So first of all, thank you for your time and effort in that regard. And I know that you're a huge advocate for attracting and retaining more women in finance. So let me ask you, how can we as an industry be better at attracting and retaining more women in our great profession? And what, in your mind, would success look like in that regard?
Well, thank you for having me. It's been an amazing experience with such wonderful peers to be talking about this and thinking about it, and for you and others to be such supporters of this work that we collectively need to do. And I think there's a million ways to attack this question. But what I typically start with is, what can you do? What can you actually do to change the dynamic and increase the diversity within your firm and therefore the industry? And I think it all it all begins with culture. And I think culture and values of a firm are going to become increasingly more important as time goes on. And I tend to ask people not just like, what do you think your culture is, but how does your team feel? Have you surveyed them? Have you asked them? What's your current kind of culture and environment look like? And what do you need to do to build a more inclusive culture? And I say this because we have one firm that I was speaking to who said, we're not actually worried about where we can recruit the talent from. We're more focused on the fact that we don't think our culture is ready. And we don't want to spend a lot and invest a lot in bringing people in only to have turnover because we're not really where we need to be. So the focus is really looking inward and assessing where you are, and then figuring out how you can recruit that talent. And I think success, I mean, maybe someday we'll be having this conversation and it won't even be a question anymore, right? Maybe we'll see a day where, whether it's gender diversity or any other definition, that it isn't even a topic.
I love that. Thank you. All right, look, we're turning for home, headed towards the finish line. So final question, on the track behind me, that's the Saratoga racetrack in my backyard up in Saratoga Springs. And on that track, which is the oldest sporting venue in the country, many horses that are gearing up for the Triple Crown are getting ready with their team. Their trainers, their jockeys, their owners, they have big aspirations and big dreams. So for you, as we close this out, let me ask you, what is your Triple Crown? What is the big goal for you, whether it's personally or professionally, over the next year or so that you're running hard to achieve?
Well, I got to tell you, from a professional perspective, it's always just showing up and doing the best thing for our clients and helping them grow. But on the personal front, I've been working on staying sane. And my big win, honestly, Shirl, would be to see you in November in Nashville at your investment forum and have a fabulous time. And by the way, if I can, be on the Peloton for a full hour and not kind of fall off at the end, then I will have achieved greatness here in this crazy year that we've had.
Well, thank you for that. And at that event in Nashville, we're looking to have a private concert with Clint Black, who I know is back out touring. So hopefully that's a really good sign that we're all going to be able to get together in November in Nashville. Christina, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. And thank you to all of you for joining us again for another episode of Around the Track.